Howdy folks, Captain Kedger again. This is a continuance of my last video I did live. That one's still processing and uploading, so I'm gonna just upload this after. I would normally do it live, but continuing on, I got the injectors out, got the seals there, the screws there. You see I got my jumpers here. One side's already connected, and then the other end is connected to the battery. I got this lead just sticking out here away from the engine. I don't want it grounding out on anything. Okay, so the engine can't start because the injectors are out, but I need to build up some pressure in the injector. Okay, now I've sprayed them off with WD-40 to clean off the ends. This is what's inside the actual motor, and there's a little valve there, and as this clicks on and off, it goes spurt, spurt, spurt as the piston needs it. But we're using direct power from the battery, so what we're looking for is to see a steady psh as the just straight up steady spray until the backup pressure dies down. So what I want to do is give it a few good pulls with got the fuel connected, and I give it a few good pulls, and you should hear a little alarm go off saying there's something wrong with the motor because the injectors are out. It doesn't have the proper pressure. You're not going to get combustion. You're not going to get compression. And the injectors are still closed. So what I'm doing is just building up pressure from that high pressure pump. And now when I touch this wire to the other contact, we should see a steady, careful not to ground it to the other one. And you see how it just sprayed out. I don't know if you caught that, but it got a steady, non-stop spray until it ran out of pressure. Let me do it again just so you can, I don't know if it caught it on camera. I was looking at the wire connector, making sure I didn't ground it out, and watching the camera, not really paying attention to the spray. Okay, that should be enough now. Let's see if I can catch it this time. Okay, yeah. See how we got a good steady spray until it ran out, and it's only like a couple seconds of pressure. And if the motor was running, it would stay spraying. Okay, that's one injector. Now I'm gonna put the camera down and, oh, sorry, I didn't warn you. I'm gonna set the camera down and go connect this to the other injector. I'll be right back. Bear with me, just hang on for a second. And still keep the phone running in the background. Get over here to the lower injector. Connect my ground lead. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that pressure buildup while you're sitting over there. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 good steady pulls. Should be good enough. Let me flip the camera around so that I'm not cracking your screen with my ugly face. Now you see I got the bottom injector connected halfway. The circuit's not complete till I touch that prong. Again, being very careful not to connect the two ends. I'll go ahead and give it another couple of pulls since I sat there for a minute, and see what this one does. Should get alrighty. Alright, so they're both clean now, spraying steady. Let's go ahead and give it one more. All right, I feel that engine's going, what's going on? There's no compression. Did you see the spray? I did. And again, it's like 1.5, 2 seconds, but non-stop. There's no spurting. It's not intermittent. And another way you can do is you can actually connect an air pump right here. This is like a bicycle tire. or a car valve for a tire, and you can pump up pressure in there. But then, see, if you got a little liquid with air built up behind it, it actually compresses the air and it puts the liquid through with a lot more force. Kind of like those toy rockets you used to have when we were in the early 80s. You'd fill it halfway with water, but the other half pump it full of air. And the water won't compress, but the air will. But the water actually gives it the power. If you just release it with just a bunch of compressed air, it doesn't take off much. It just flops to the ground. When you put water underneath that air, and that's pressure built up, it pushes the water out with force like a jet, sending it like a rocket up into the air. And we're kind of getting that same, basically you get your fuel in the injector and then you pump in some air pressure behind it, and you can compress that fitting and rocket the fuel out with the compressed air behind it and give it a nice good blast, and that will often help clear out the injectors like much quicker. So anyway, now we're at the stage of putting it back together, and we'll see how she runs. Like I said, I haven't seen any glitches yet today, but they've been having problems with it stalling and such. So let me go ahead and put the phone down, and I'll put this on the upload while I take this cable off and disconnect it from the battery. Then I'll get back to put this together, and I'll see if I can film the process of putting it back together. It's not real complicated. It's just a matter of being really careful to keep those seals in place as you line it up. And you want to make sure that you line the bolts up and bring them down tight evenly. Don't just tighten one and then the other. You want to bring a couple turns on one, then a couple turns on the other, and make sure that the two injectors go into the ports at an even rate. You don't want that whole rig to turn cock sideways or cattywampus, because it can bind on the bolts can bind up and strip, but also the seals themselves can get pinched and compressed on one side with an air gap on the other, and you'll have a leak, and that'll cause you some of those problems I was talking about earlier. So that's about all I can think to details to add to that, and so let me go ahead and get on this. And another thing you want to be real careful about, especially with cars like a 8-cylinder big block, you got 8 sets of wires for these plugs going to the injectors. You need to keep these straight because they're timed with the cylinders. And on this setup, I can pull them both off no problem, because one of them is longer than the other, and the longest one goes to the top, short one goes to the bottom. That's pretty simple to keep them. There's only 2 cylinders to keep track of. But if you're dealing with an 8-cylinder car, or anything more complicated than this, really, you want to do only one injector at a time, because they're not going to be on a rod. Like, they'll have separate what do you call them? Yes, they will be on a manifold, but you'll be able to take the manifold off and pull each individual injector out and power it individually. And oftentimes you can, like I said, run the car on one less cylinder. You can run the car and use its own power straight without going to the battery, and what you'll see is the spurting from the engine timing. Instead of a steady spray, you'll get the steady pressure of the fuel pump constantly running, though. So you'll see, instead of having to pull, and then you only get 2 seconds to observe, you just sit there and observe it as long as you really want to. And the engine isn't going to be running right, but it'll stay running on. I've seen a 8-cylinder engine stay running on 4 cylinders. So then the only problem is you just want to be careful not to make any wires spark because you got fuel spraying out everywhere in the engine compartment, and one little spark and woof, you got an engine fire. So very important things to consider on different motors before you start something like this. Okay, until next time, Captain Kedger signing off.